Hi everyone, hope you're doing alright, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Bit of an unscripted video today, but I want to talk about something a little bit different. Now, a lot of you guys will have noticed, and in fact, a few of you guys have very kindly commented on the fact that in my last sort of few months of videos, there is a little bit less of me. And the reason there is a little bit less of me is because I've lost quite a lot of weight, about 3 stone. As we speak, and there are a couple of reasons for this, one in particular that I want to talk about today. Like I say, not a scripted video, so my apologies in advance if I waffle. One of the reasons I've lost a lot of weight is because of lockdown. Obviously boredom. I've been out walking, out exercising an awful lot more than I would normally. But most importantly, and most critically, and what I attribute the vast majority of this weight loss to, is the fact that it's been 2.5 months since I had an alcoholic drink. Now, as anyone who's been with the channel or has watched a lot of my videos will know, I am partial to a beer. I used to spend a lot of my social time used to be spent in pubs, certainly my local pub. Again, just to give a very quick bit of background, when I moved to where I live now, I didn't know anyone. I moved here to be with my now wife, and I didn't know anyone, and a lot of my social life began to be built around the pub. So I found myself going there very often, particularly considering I work on my own an awful lot of the time. So that was my social outlet. And I drank too much. And just to give you an idea, I would go there most days and have 3 or 4 pints, and then maybe I'd have a drink when I got home as well. So in order to lose weight, I cut out alcohol. And why did I cut out alcohol? And this is why I sort of want to talk about it. I'll also talk about a little bit about the effects as well that I've experienced in the last sort of 2.5 months. During the first lockdown, the very first thing I did when the pub shut, apart from be silently weep, the next thing I did after silently weeping was go to the supermarket, get a trolley and stock up on booze. And from memory, I bought a couple of boxes of wine, several bottles of wine, a couple of cases of beer, litre of Bacardi, litre of scotch, and some other bits and pieces. So it was a big shop full of booze. I think my concern was, of course, that people would panic buying alcohol, and I wanted to make sure I had, a lot in, and then I had a variety of alcohol in the house to enjoy, and I did. And because the weather was nice during the first lockdown, I sat outside an awful lot of evenings and drank a bottle of wine, or had a few beers, or I was even popping out at lunch because I was working from home, popping out on my lunch break, sitting outside in the garden, having my lunch and having a beer with my lunch. And whilst I have never, thought of myself as someone who is an alcoholic or someone who has a drinking problem, I certainly had a problem with drinking in so much that I was drinking far too regularly, and whilst I wasn't getting drunk, I was drinking excessively. So when it came to this most recent lockdown, I had a decision to make. I could do the same thing again, which was stock up on alcohol and, in effect, kind of drink my way through it. With all the potential weight loss, the health implications, and also the implications on my relationship. Alcohol directly and indirectly has caused the majority of the arguments between myself and my wife, and that's not that we argue regularly, but when we do, it's often about that, be it either directly because I'm drunk, or a bit worse for wear, or because I've been in the pub for too long, or because I'm snoring because I've had too much to drink before bed, and that caused a few problems in the relationship. So I had a bit of a path to take. I could repeat what I did in the first lockdown, which is kind of continue drinking the way I was, but at home rather than in the pub, or I could do something different. And I had to make a conscious decision as to what I was going to do. And I chose the latter option for once, which actually surprised even me. But I thought I'd give it a go. And it was suitably difficult. I won't lie, but the one thing I realised very quickly is that the alcohol I was drinking whilst the pubs were shut wasn't scratching the itch of going to the pub. And as I said at the beginning of this video, the pub to me was a social place. It was where I went to do 99% of my socialising because I, in effect, worked alone. Even when I was working, not from home, when I was working in the office, I didn't have an awful lot of social interaction because of the nature of the job we do. So a lot of my socialising was doing in the pub, and I think on a subconscious and almost a conscious level, to be honest, I was trying to replicate or replace that social drinking those pub visits by just exaggerating one element of that, which was the alcohol. I hope that makes sense. Basically, what I was doing was, I can't go to the pub and have a few social beers, which is fine, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. And once the pub's open back up again, I will be going to the pub for a couple of social beers. But I can't do that. So what I'm going to do is just have the beers in the hope that in some way it fills that void, it scratches that itch for the drinking. But it didn't. All I got were, in effect, the negative effects of drinking, which are the negative health implications, the arguments with the wife, and the waking up feeling groggy and all the rest of it. I got those, but I didn't get the positive side of it. I didn't get the socialization, but also the mix of social and feeling the impacts of the alcohol. You know, being relaxed from alcohol, not drunk, but having a couple of beers and being around friends can be a very entertaining, liberating thing. You know, your inhibitions drop a little bit, not too much, but inhibitions drop a little bit. You're a bit more jovial, you laugh, you joke, you open up a little bit, particularly if you're slightly introverted like I am. You open up a little bit and you can actually enjoy yourself a little bit more because of the alcohol. But when drinking in isolation, all you'll find is that you get the negative effects of the alcohol, you know, without that positive side. And what I was doing previously was trying to replicate the whole positive experience just with that one element, and that one element being alcohol. So I did that, and it was a struggle because I was, and very similar to what I just said, I thought I was missing drinking. In the first few weeks, I was like, oh, I could murder a drink. I could really murder a big glass of wine or whatever. But what I was missing wasn't the alcohol. What I was missing was the everything that surrounds it. And I think in a sense we can say the same about gambling. When we first quit gambling, we feel like we're going to be missing out on something. We feel like we're giving up a part of our lives, a significant part of our lives. And in the same way that the pub formed a significant part of my life, gambling and some of the sociabilities even around gambling, although how we define social varies. Some of the sociabilities around gambling, the playing the fruit machines in the pub, the seeing the people in the bookies even. And I talked in my last video about gambling friends and actual friends. But we feel that this has become such an integrated part of our life that giving it up is going to cause such a hole, such a void in our life, in our lifestyles, that we don't really quite know how to cope. We don't know how to adjust. We don't know how to fill that void. So what we do is we continue to gamble. And just much like the pubs are being shut at the moment, all the venues where you may get that social interaction with gambling, casinos, bookies, pubs, whatever, they're closed. Those avenues are closed. Even chatting about your accas in the pub with your mates is off limits. But the actual gambling is still there, and we see that gambling is filling part of that void. And maybe we try and fill too much of that void with the gambling itself because we feel that's what we're missing. And what we're actually missing is something much wider, much broader. So what else have I noticed since I stopped drinking? Well, I've spoken in the past about urges and how my gambling urges have become less and less frequent. Certainly the urges that I have an outside propensity to act upon have become less frequent, and I have said before in many videos, and I won't go over the same old ground, that I have sufficient blocks in place now that if I do have urges which my brain has a little bit of propensity to act upon, I can't. And I certainly can't in good time or time enough that I don't, rethink or check myself, basically. But I did find, if we go back 8, 12 months, whatever, that my gambling urges, and if I'm honest, the one occasion where I did attempt to gamble, whether I would or not, I'll never know because I didn't have the option. But the one time I did attempt to have a gamble was after a few beers. And I know from historical attempts, and I use the word lightly, but historical times where I've told myself I'm going to stop gambling online, historical times where I've told myself I need to cut down on my gambling, that alcohol is an incredible catalyst for gambling. I would sit there and I'd have literally a couple of beers, a couple of cans of beer at home, a couple of bottles, whatever, or one glass of wine. And that relatively small amount of alcohol, given what I was drinking overall, that relatively small amount of alcohol would be enough to lower my inhibitions and make me want to have a gamble. When just half hour previously, before any alcohol, I'd resolved that evening I wouldn't have a punt, I wouldn't go online and gamble. It's incredible how, even before any other physical or mental effects or psychological effects of the alcohol take hold, the trigger to want you to gamble, the trigger of an urge to gamble, kicks in before you even realise it. And that's very, very dangerous. And gambling and alcohol go hand in hand in so many ways that if you want to quit one, I wouldn't go against recommending maybe looking at your relationship with the other. Now, this is the point at which in the video, like I do in all my videos, I will say, please, 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 don't take this as me speaking from a position of a high horse. Please don't think I'm preaching. Please don't think that, in any way I'm now saying you must do this because I've done it. Because I am telling you now that when the pubs are open and when the pub gardens are open next month, filmed in March 2021, that I will be there and I will be drinking alcohol and I will be chatting with my mates and I will probably overindulge on the first couple of occasions. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. So I'm not coming as I'm not pleading a point of authority. I'm not pleading, oh, look at me, look what I've done. But I would say that if you're looking to quit gambling, work out where your triggers are. And alcohol is, if you do drink, so a lot of you guys might not drink for various reasons, but if you do drink, look to see if you believe alcohol is one of those triggers. And if it is, maybe consider in the early stages of your gambling addiction, I'm not saying go teetotal for life, whether at times when you're likely to gamble, times when you have an opportunity to gamble, whether maybe eliminating alcohol from those is more likely to reduce the urges. Certainly, like I say, the effect on me was profound. I haven't had many seriously strong urges recently. I am obviously a little way now into my recovery, but certainly I would say my thoughts of gambling and any urges, even the ones that I wouldn't really likely to act on, have almost entirely disappeared in this time that I've been abstinent from alcohol. And this is, of course, ignoring, the sort of situation, the societal link between gambling and alcohol. If we take bookmakers out of the equation, pretty much every other form of gambling, every other time, every other place where you would find yourself gambling, has alcohol associated with it. The pubs, fruit machines. Casinos, they all have a bar, and actually sitting down playing blackjack or whatever with a drink is perfectly acceptable. It is the norm. Go to the races, you have a few beers, don't you? Most forms of gambling, even at the bingo there's a bar, isn't there? But most forms of gambling have alcohol associated with them, and the two, in terms of the situation you're in, go hand in hand, but also psychologically, I believe they go hand in hand. And like I say, even though my urges had been reducing purely due to my recovery and my abstinence, I found they virtually disappeared in this time that I haven't been drinking. And I wonder whether, had I applied that at the early stages of my recovery, whether that would have also had a positive effect in reducing the urges that I was experiencing. So I appreciate this video is going on a bit, but hopefully some of you are finding it interesting. If you are thinking of giving up drinking or taking a bit of abstinence from drinking, I personally, as someone who hasn't been this long without drinking my entire adult life, I wouldn't have thought, I would recommend it. It might not be for you. You might get a month in and hate it. I found the first month was certainly the hardest. I had the urge to drink, but like I say, I think a lot of that was psychological because I was trying to replicate the absence of a social life, which was all based around drinking. I didn't have too many urges, although I found very much in the first few weeks that my health suffered. My skin was appalling. I got red blotchiness. I got lots of spots. I suffer from gout, for which I'm medicated, but I got gout flare-ups all the time in the initial month, and actually they've continued almost up to this day, but now I'm actually properly medicated for them because I've lost the weight. Because I've abstained from alcohol, I can actually go and get the proper treatment for them. I'm actually getting a blood test as well next week. I'll let you know how that goes, because that will measure my liver function, which was high, my blood pressure and all the rest of it, all the things that were high, of course, if you don't have a particularly healthy lifestyle and you drink. But also I found that the initial impact, if you're a regular drinker, on your physical health and specifically on your weight is palpable. I've lost 3 stone in 3 months, which is insane. And I don't think that's a sustainable thing. Of course not. I was carrying a lot of surplus weight because it was beer, it was whiskey, it was wine, it was all these empty calories I was piling into my body. But I feel significantly better for it. I feel healthier, my clothes fit better, and there are real positives that I'm garnering from this abstinence from alcohol. And like I say, I don't expect it to be a long-term thing. I do not expect to go back to it, but at the moment I'm not missing it. I'm not going to ramble on any longer. I realise I've just gone into a little bit of a sort of tirade there about the benefits of quitting alcohol. But what I would say is, if you are quitting gambling, consider it. If you are considering just going abstinent from alcohol for a bit, give it a go. If it, don't expect, like gambling, don't expect the benefits to be immediately apparent, and don't expect it to be fun, because the first couple of weeks weren't. I felt physically worse, mentally worse for the first couple of weeks than I would have done if I just, bought a 4-pack or opened a bottle of whiskey. But longer term, now I'm feeling better. But I cannot wait to get out there in the sunshine with my mates in the beer garden, April the 12th, and have a few pints. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. It's appreciated. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already, that would be appreciated. And of course, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.